Build professional skills this semester with Adobe Creative Cloud and create standout work both in and out of the classroom. Save big on professional creativity tools. Students get 65% off Adobe Creative Cloud, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Acrobat Pro, and 20+ creative apps. No matter what project you're working on, Adobe Creative Cloud apps can help you take it to the next level. Visit adobe.com/student to learn more.
This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. This is The Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC Radio, the most dynamic and influential AM radio station in America today. Take a minute to go over to the App Store on your cell phone and download the 77 WABC Radio app so you don't miss any of the amazing programming, both talk and entertainment, that we have here at 77 WABC. Joining me now, Owen Shroyer, who is the host of the War Room at Infowars.com. He became far more famous when he was prosecuted in the District of Columbia for his, I would say, actions on January 6th. But I think this was a miscarriage of justice. Based on everything I know, Owen Shroyer never entered the Capitol, never destroyed any public property, never assaulted anyone, never engaged in any violence, never urged anyone else to engage in violence. Yet he went to jail in the most unpleasant circumstances. So, Owen Shroyer, I want to talk about a lot more than this, of course, but Owen Shroyer, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Always great to be with you, Roger, longtime friend. We've been on the airwaves together for quite some time. And so the government, the Democrat Party, tried to put both of us behind bars to shut us up. But here we are, still kicking.
So explain to people exactly how this happened, because I, among others, found it shocking. I mean, I had my own experience that day, as you know, never intended to go to the Capitol, never left the grounds of my hotel. I thought it was really odd. Immediately after President Trump spoke at the Ellipse, I was watching it on TV in my hotel room, and the phone rang, house phone. I answered the phone. There were two Secret Service agents in the lobby of the hotel, which was closed because of their COVID restrictions, telling me that they had been instructed to accompany me to the Capitol, where I never had any plan or intention of going. Of course, the implication was that the president had urged them to do this or instructed them to do this. I doubt that. I politely declined, which seemed to make them extremely angry, to be honest with you. I'm told that in roughly the same time period, Secret Service agents approached Alex Jones and Ali Alexander and others, urging to escort them to the Capitol. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I find all of that kind of strange. So tell my listeners what you were doing that day and what subsequently happened to you, because I don't think they all know.
Well, let me codify the information that you just went over, and then I'll get into the specifics of my case. A similar thing happened to us where we were sitting, I think, in like row 2 of the Trump rally at the Ellipse that day. And before Trump had finished speaking, some Secret Service agents came over to us and offered to escort us to the Capitol. And as you know, not just in live media, but even working at InfoWars, you know, sometimes you just don't have control of the hatches, let's say. It's a little chaotic at times. And so when Secret Service pulled us out of the rally, unbeknownst to us that this was going to happen, we were like, okay, well, I guess we'll take the escort to the Capitol. But we had a very large group with us. A couple people had to go to the bathroom. And then Alex Jones and I, were having a bit of a seasoned debate, let's say, on whether we wanted to go to the Capitol at that moment or whether we were going to wait for Donald Trump. And I guess it was a bit of a blessing in disguise that all of this happened and delayed us about an hour, because if we would have taken the Secret Service escort at the time they wanted us, we probably would have been at the Capitol when everything was being broken into and all of the violence started. So luckily we weren't there for that. Now, it could have been better if we were there, because we tried to stop it, and that's what Alex and I did when we got to the Capitol, was try to warn people against it. Alex predicted exactly that it would be used against Trump and against us, and unfortunately, by the time we got there, it was too late. Now, to get into the specifics of my case, all I did on January 6, 2021, was go from the Trump rally to the Capitol grounds. I was with my TV crew, production crew, Alex Jones, our security. As I said, that by the time we got there, the violence had already broken out. We, on multiple occasions, and this is even recognized as documented fact in my proceedings in the D.C. courts, that yes, Alex Jones, myself, and our security tried to stop the violence that day. We're on camera multiple times trying to work with police officers. We're on camera multiple times trying to discourage people from engaging in violence and going into the Capitol. So the claim of my crime that day, and while this might be shocking for anyone in the audience that hasn't heard this before, you can find this public information on my sentencing hearing documents and on my sentencing recommendation documents. My crime that day, Roger, was speech, because I chanted 1776. And because I chanted USA, I'm not kidding you, that's the actual quote they have, because I chanted 1776 and USA at the Capitol that day, not inside, but at the Capitol, never touched a police officer, but stood on the Capitol grounds and chanted 1776 and USA, that was my crime. Now, to further this as a speech crime, which is what they did to me, they then quoted my talk show that you referenced earlier on InfoWars, the War Room, with things that I said before and after the election having nothing to do with January 6th. Commentary on Joe Biden taking money from the communist Chinese. Commentary on election theft in America. They even said because I didn't express remorse for denying the 2020 election results, that was a punishable offense. These were all the offenses mentioned in my sentencing document that I ultimately served 2 months in a federal prison. I've been on probation for years. Even everybody involved in this process, from my probation officer to everybody at the prison, said they've never seen or heard of anybody with a misdemeanor. I have a single count misdemeanor of entering and remaining on restricted government property. That's it, a misdemeanor. It's a lesser trespassing charge. And I'm being treated like a violent felon. Every protocol that a violent felon has to go through when it comes to federal probation, I am going through. So the people in the prison, the federal probation officers, everyone says, why are you here? I don't understand. I've never seen anybody with a misdemeanor. I try to explain them that it's political persecution. They find it hard to believe. And yet here we are. So the news now, Roger, is officially yesterday, my legal team and I from the 1776 Law Center have filed a petition to the Supreme Court to have my charges dropped and removed because it's a First Amendment violation. Now, this is a very important free speech case because the precedent set here is that the federal government can take anything you've said, whether it has anything to do with your crimes or not, then they can sentence you or enhance your sentence or incarceration based off of things you've said that have nothing to do with the crime that they're accusing you of. So this is why it's a very important Supreme Court case. All we need is 4 Supreme Court justices to be interested in it, to get it to the next level. We filed it yesterday. So it's Owen Shroyer versus the United States. This is a major free speech case. And as you know, Roger, there are a lot of cases right now where we are engaged to try to save the First Amendment. It says, shall not be infringed for a reason.
Yeah, look, the 2 greatest dangers to America today, I think, are censorship, cancellation, the suppression of free speech, because without that, no legitimate fair political victory can be won. The other great danger is artificial intelligence, because I now know that immediately after this show is over, I can take the recording of this show, I can take snippets of Owen Shroyer's voice, and I can create an audio track of him planning to rob a bank. Unless you used AI detection software programs, of which there are several good ones, you would never know the difference. So I think that the possibilities for mischief, when you combine the curtailing of free speech, the elimination of free speech, with the extraordinary ability of artificial intelligence to mislead, to create false images and audios to convince people that public figures have said and done things that they never said and did, that's extraordinarily dangerous. We lose sight of the fact that the ongoing censorship, particularly on the internet, is endemic. Yeah, it's great that Elon Musk bought Twitter, now known as X. And while I'm grateful to be back there. By the way, I'm Roger J. Stone Jr., Roger J. Stone Jr., Roger J. Stone Jr. There's about 20 Roger Stones on Twitter, folks, but on X. But there's only one, and that's the one that is verified. But it is amazing when you think that going into this election, first of all, we already have evidence that the Department of Homeland Security is playing the same role they did last time, which is leaning on some of these social media companies and others to suppress free speech going into the election. But Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, these are all continue to be fully censored. Millions of people go to these sites, but they continue to be fully censored. And if your point of view doesn't fit the accepted narrative, well, they will either shadow ban you, which means you'll still see your posts, but nobody else will, or they will just decapitate you entirely, which is, of course, what happened to me at both Facebook and Instagram.
Well, we've both been through that, Roger, and while X, the formerly known as Twitter, is certainly not perfect, I think we all have to tip our cap to Elon and what he's done over there to release it for free speech. And, I mean, for a guy who didn't really come from a social media background, he's certainly done a lot of good things to develop it as a platform. Now, aside from that, I want to get back to something else you said that I think is very important with this AI. It's known as deepfake technology, where you can basically do a video or an audio of somebody, and it's so undistinguishable from the real thing that you never know what's real or what's fake. And we're really up against that now. President Trump made a reference. We all remember the P tape where he's talking to Billy Bush. President Trump actually made a reference to that. It was kind of subtle and didn't get much attention, where he was even doubting the veracity of it. And was he making an inference that he thought that was some sort of an AI deepfake? So this is just kind of some of the stuff that they can do. And even if it does come out, whether it's against President Trump or Roger Stone or Owen Shroyer or just you in the audience, even if it does eventually get determined to be fake, the damage will have already been done. I mean, they could release something fake of Trump, and even if we figure out it's fake and that eventually is the determination, the damage will already be done. We all know first impressions are the most important, and the corrupt mainstream media will only cover the first wave of information. They won't cover the second, third, and fourth. So this is a major issue. I don't hear much being spoken about it when it comes to Congress. Maybe it's a little ahead of its time right now to cover. We're still trying to figure out what to do with the social media platforms that are censoring people. We're still trying to figure out how to deal with the fake news media that's almost wholly and entirely corrupted. So we've kind of got those issues to deal with, I think, before we can really lean into the AI issue. But certainly it's an uphill battle, and that's why it's going to be such a great victory, just like it was in 2016. If we can get Trump reelected, knowing all the obstacles and the booby traps and the landmines and the censorship and everything else that the deep state and the corrupt establishment puts in front of us. If we can do it again, it'll even be more sweet.
Yeah, we actually had a very well-known and experienced Democratic political consultant, Steve Kramer, who went public and took credit for an AI-generated robocall that had actually been used in the New Hampshire primary, which was the voice of Joe Biden urging people not to vote. Now, he said he did this to prove the dangers of this technology. It got some coverage. I tried to get him on the Roger Stone show, was unable to do so, but I think it demonstrates exactly what you say, the propensity, the potential for mischief using AI, extraordinarily dangerous. Let's switch to what's going on to the campuses. I saw a great video of you trying to have a respectful, relatively calm conversation with demonstrators on the campuses. I'm not sure which campus that was. There was a lot of obscenity, so I thought about trying to play it here today, but we would have had to beep out most of it. So we thought we'd go right to the horse's mouth. What's going on in these campuses today, Owen?
Well, so that was UT's campus, and I would say this is a real complex issue, and unfortunately it's boiled down to the simple weight of everything now, where it just becomes another left-wing front. It just becomes another left-wing front that's eventually going to boil down to, liberals versus police, or liberals versus maybe even white people to some extent. And so it looks like that's where this is going. And so I went out there to UT when they started protesting because, quite frankly, I thought that the police response was a little heavy-handed. And I'm somebody that really likes consistency more than anything. I think consistency and having the same standard for everybody is a very important thing for a functioning civilization, especially if people want to have faith in the system. So I watched in Austin, Texas, and all around the country, because I go to these events. I go boots on the ground and cover these events as a journalist for InfoWars, and everybody witnessed it. We witnessed Black Lives Matter and Antifa pretty much run roughshod over this country for years with very little police enforcement. I mean, we all watched them burn cities to the ground, and there was very little police enforcement. So when I saw the police get heavy-handed to the protesters at UT, I'm saying, well, now hold on a second. This is a little double standard that I'm witnessing here. And, I'm a free speech supporter. I'm a free speech advocate. So if you're standing there and engaging in legal, lawful First Amendment activity, even if I disagree with it, I'm going to stand up for your rights. So I went down there for that. And unfortunately, what I discovered was exactly where this is going. Most of these people don't know about the issues. They probably couldn't locate Israel or Palestine or the Gaza Strip on a map. Same thing goes for Ukraine. It's all just the latest cause celeb. It's all just the latest protest flavor of the month. It's funded and organized by the same groups that have been doing this for 6, 7, 8 years now, mostly since Trump got into politics, but even before that. And so I was sitting there saying, hey, look, because quite frankly, I might even, let's be fair. What the liberal media and what these George Soros groups will do to these liberals is they'll take a real issue where there's room for some discussion, like maybe law reform or justice reform. Maybe it's Israel's foreign policy or what's happening in the Gaza Strip. There's room for a discussion there in my eyes. People might disagree, but still, there's room for discussion. It's obviously being had. But so they take these real issues, and then they take ignorant college liberals, they turn them violent, and then whatever the issue is supposed to be or whatever the issue they think they're fighting for, it ends up not becoming the issue, and they just end up serving as a distraction, which is, okay, now look, we've got a bunch of rioters, we've got a bunch of protesters. But, it's amazing the juxtaposition between the response in Florida and Texas versus the lack of response, if you will, in New York and California. But so it's really boiled down to this. it's once again these leftist college liberals and all these activists and organizers that move into the area to take advantage of this. And they're going to square off against police. This will probably be the protest flavor of the month. It might go on throughout summer. You know, the political ramifications, though, Roger, are very serious. I think the Democrats know they have a problem here because these are obviously young Democrat voters, potentially at least, and they're not going to be voting for Joe Biden. The Democrats certainly noticed this. I don't know if you saw, but there was a protest where you had the pro-Israel side and the pro-Palestinian side squaring off against one another. And the pro-Israel side started chanting F Joe Biden. And then, as if not to let them get one over on them, the anti-Israel side started chanting F Joe Biden. So, I mean, when there's a moment of unity over F Joe Biden, I think that really shows you kind of where the temperature in the room is. So there's definitely political ramifications for the Democrats. And now these protest groups are saying that they are planning a major protest outside of the Democrat National Convention in Chicago in mid-August. I think it's the 18th through the 21st. My dates might be a little off, but mid to late August, the Democratic Convention in Chicago, they've said they're going to protest. Now, they filed for rally for a rally rights. They filed so they could have an official protest and an official rally legally and lawfully, and they got rejected. So you can imagine what that did. That only pissed them off even more. And so now they're organizing even more hardcore and activating even more hardcore. So we could see some major fireworks in Chicago this August during the DNC.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, I'm talking to Owen Shroyer, who is the host of the War Room Show every day at Infowars.com. That's 4 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Eastern, and we'll be right back.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Kick off summer with Memorial Day savings at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 Scott's Naturescapes 1.5 cubic foot mulch bags for just $10. Plus, get up to 40% off select major appliances and save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/28. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
This is Roger Stone, and you're listening to The Roger Stone Show here at 77 WABC. We're talking to Owen Shroyer. He is the host of The War Room at Infowars.com. And we've been talking about January 6th. We've been talking about the riots and the protests at the campuses. But now I'd like to turn to what is happening to President Donald Trump. Obviously tied down to a New York courtroom. Therein lies a problem. The whole purpose of this tsunami of lawfare against him is not to convict him because they know he'll ultimately be exonerated on appeal. They're just hoping that will be after the election. But to pin him down physically, so he has to sit in a courtroom when he should be out campaigning, to drain his campaign funds because he has to pay lawyers. By the way, the Democratic National Committee's been paying for Joe Biden's lawyers in the special counsel investigation of his handling of classified documents, but also to try to continue to blacken his name. Does not seem to me to be working. Owen, you pointed out that he's been very effective, even though he's been pinned down in New York.
Yeah, this might be another case of the Democrats plotting, really backfiring on themselves. And Trump, of course, is in court again today. Hope Hicks is testifying. Unfortunately, it looks like another person who betrayed Donald Trump and decided to go against him for whatever reasons. But what I've seen happening is Trump has been given kind of a golden opportunity, being stuck in New York City, to do something that a Republican has never done in my lifetime, and that's actually rally and campaign in New York City. And it's really been a smashing success, from the trip to the bodega to the trip to the fire stations and police stations, where, I mean, there's a massive turnout, there's massive energy, everybody loves him, everybody supports him. So in a way, they've given Trump kind of this opportunity to fight for New York. And I mean, I don't know, Roger, I'd probably lean on your political expertise more than my own to make it whether New York is possible for a Republican to win at this point. But I mean, my goodness, if he pulls New York, I don't know how the Democrats can win ever again in an electoral college situation. It's probably why they want to remove it. So he's been able to campaign successfully in New York City. And what this has done is it's juxtaposed it against Joe Biden, who could never go to New York City. He could never go to New York City, probably physically, and campaign. He could never go to New York City because there would be massive protests. There wouldn't be massive support. I don't know if there's ever been a political campaign situation like what we've seen from Joe Biden. Now, we can give him a pass for the 2020 situation because of all the COVID nonsense. So I'll give him a pass for not campaigning in 2020, even though we both know that that's bogus. He's not campaigning now. He doesn't do campaigns. He has these canned events where they invite known Democrat loyalists, precinct chairs, big donors. They fill like half a high school gymnasium with maybe 100 people, and it's closed off events. Trump has massive rallies, tens of thousands of people show up. Anybody can go there. They're waiting in line for hours, if not days. And then Biden has these closed off events. Biden came out and made a statement yesterday, and it was in response to everything that's going on at the college campuses. It took him a week. I guess he's been sitting in the cryogenic chamber or in the iron lung, I don't know, hooked up to needles and wires and God knows what else, just to get the energy. And so finally, after weeks of this, he goes and makes a statement. 3 minutes of a press statement, and then takes no questions. So Donald Trump is in and out of court. He's hitting the campaign trail. He did 2 rallies yesterday in Wisconsin and Michigan. And then he hit the streets of New York. So really the juxtaposition here of Joe Biden hiding, being too cowardly and doesn't have the energy to campaign, versus Donald Trump doing all of this, still having campaign events, hitting the streets of New York City. I mean, this is optics that the Democrats can't deny. This is optics that the Democrats can't even put on a fight against. What's going to happen when Trump goes to Atlanta for these cases? Is he going to go downtown again, like when he went to that Chick-fil-A? Is he going to go out downtown and massive crowds of people going to show up? Then what happens when they say, oh, yeah, the Democrats got 80% of the vote in New York City and Atlanta again? Are people going to believe that? It's not going to be your diehard Trump supporters that showed up by the millions in D.C. on January 6th. It's going to be the average American that say, wait a second, I don't know anybody that likes Joe Biden or voted for Joe Biden. I know everybody that voted for Donald Trump. How did this happen? So they've really put themselves in a hole here, and I don't know how they're going to dig themselves out of it without making it totally obvious.
All right, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. I'm delighted that Owen Shroyer got the last word. I agree entirely, by the way, the idea of him going to the wake for the New York City police officer who was killed by a man who had 21 priors, or going to the bodega in Harlem, a Republican presidential candidate in Harlem. Hasn't happened since 1960. So Donald Trump can campaign effectively from wherever he is. Why? Well, because he's Donald Trump, and he's always interesting. Let me thank Owen Shroyer from the War Room on Infowars.com for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show. My friend, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thank you, Roger. Always a pleasure.
This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Roger Stone, and this is The Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC Radio. We are the crown jewel of talk radio. We are the crown jewel of AM radio. To be sure you don't miss any of the great entertainment or talk programming here at 77 WABC, make sure you go by the App Store and get that 77 WABC radio app so you don't miss a single second of the great programming we bring you here on the most influential and most powerful AM radio station in America today. We are honored to have with us today one of President Donald Trump's attorneys, to my mind, one of both his most effective and his most articulate attorneys, Alina Habba, who represented Donald Trump in the so-called valuations case that ended several weeks ago. She is not representing him on the ongoing so-called hush money case, but she is a spokesperson for him and continues to advise him legally on other matters. Alina Habba, we are very privileged to have you with us today.
Oh, the privilege is mine. Thanks, Roger.
So, I don't know, watching this whole thing, of course, unfold in New York City, I have a certain sense of deja vu. In my case, in the so-called Russian collusion hoax, where I was falsely accused of either Russian collusion or WikiLeaks collaboration, for which, of course, the government never produced any evidence at all. Not only was I gagged, but members of my family were gagged. Members of my family, my children, my wife, were not allowed to speak publicly at all. Of course, they weren't charged with any crime. The court's authority to gag them and limit their First Amendment rights was bizarre. But in this particular case, I just find it extraordinarily unfair that, for example, witnesses like Michael Cohen or Stormy Daniels or others, they're allowed to trash Donald Trump anywhere they want. Michael Cohen's actually making money on TikTok attacking Trump, but the president's not allowed to defend himself. That seems fundamentally unfair and un-American to me. What say you?
Yeah, it's a dual system of justice is exactly what it is. It's unconstitutional. So typically a gag order is to protect the defendant who's innocent until proven guilty, and to make sure that the jury is not tainted. But what we have here is that the witnesses, the sources, moreover, of this case are able to speak loudly, speak on TV, speak to their bases. And, of course, that's the left-wing media. But anybody on the Trump team, on the conservative side, representing a former president, probably the future president, anybody on our side, we can't. We can't speak about certain items. And frankly, the items we can't speak about are the ones that are not very favorable to the Biden administration, discussing the corruption or talking about the credibility of witnesses. And that is a problem. And the president has said it time and time again when he comes out in the courtroom and he gets 2 minutes to talk to the press about what's actually going on in there. This is completely unconstitutional. This is the banana republic third world stuff, Roger. I mean, this is what happens. You go after your political opponent, you shut them up, you jail them, you jail their people, you go after them. It's targeting. And it's just, look, I don't know how we're going to stop it as Americans other than if President Trump wins and gets in there and cleans it up. But we cannot continue like this.
Before we leave the gag order, the judge said last week that he would impose, quote, an incarceratory punishment on Trump if the president continues to make public comments regarding the case. It sounds to me like this judge may actually be thinking about or considering putting a former president of the United States in jail prior to his being convicted of any fabricated crime.
Meanwhile, they're okay with the protests and everything happening in our country. That's okay. That free speech is okay when it's hate and hate-filled. But this, where somebody's truly on trial and trying to defend themselves, is okay. Is jail-worthy. I want to see what Alvin Bragg does with the people in New York that have been protesting and doing things and hate crimes right now. How's he going to treat them? Because he's got a 50+% rate of not convicting people. But when it comes to Donald Trump and a gag order that's completely unconstitutional, we got a judge threatening to put him in jail. For what? Saying that one of the witnesses has no credibility? That's jail-worthy in this state? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense.
Since we both agree that the gag order is unconstitutional, nowhere does it say that if you are charged with a crime, you forfeit your First Amendment rights.
Right.
Is the president unable to appeal the gag order, or is it just that it cannot be done in a timely enough fashion to impact the conduct of this trial?
Yeah, I think that's the issue, right? Appeals take time. And I learned this. Obviously, there are emergent applications that we can do, but there is not a stone that the team is not turning. You know, they really are a great legal team down there, and they're doing what they need to do. But you've got, you know, a team at one point that's in the criminal court in trial, and then we're sending lawyers to the appellate division to file things. It's insane. And it's very much what we dealt with Letitia James, the same thing every week in the appellate division, trying to get a grasp on constitutionalness and trying to appeal to those judges who are higher up and say, guys, help us here. We've got an unhinged situation. We need you to step in and correct what is happening in the ongoing trial. The problem you have, though, with this case, Roger, is that there is a jury, and these decisions are being made in front of a jury. So even if we undo things, the jury sees it. And everyone knows, no matter what you tell the jury, that they're looking at the news. You know, they're definitely looking. And at the end of the day, we got to be careful. You know, this is supposed to be impartial. We need them to stay impartial. We need the jury and the courtroom to be clean and out, and there should be no bias in there so that they can just listen to the witnesses and apply facts to the law, because President Trump did nothing wrong. So if we can get that, he will win.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC Radio, and we are talking to Alina Habba, who is one of President Donald Trump's attorneys. We're talking specifically about the New York so-called hush money case currently being tried in Manhattan. This judge, this kind of confounds me. First of all, the judge personally gave a campaign contribution to Joe Biden's presidential campaign. Now, it was only $15, but I think that is immaterial. The judicial canon of ethics says in New York State that judges are not supposed to give political contributions to anybody, Republican or Democrat. Yet the judge betrays his bias with this contribution. That alone, in my opinion, should have given him the good sense to recuse himself and let this case go to a different judge. And then we learned that the judge's daughter, who is an adult, is a Democrat fundraising consultant who has raised millions of dollars for her clients, including the Biden-Harris campaign, using this trial as the focal point of her fundraising appeals. Therefore, seems to me that Judge Merchant has a direct financial conflict of interest here with a member of his family. Strike two. Evidently, this judge wants his 15 minutes. He wants to be hailed at his private club as the man who took down Donald Trump, because his conduct in this trial so far, including both a refusal to recuse himself and a denial of the motion to move the venue to someplace less biased in terms of jury selection than Manhattan, both denied. Extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's part of the problem with the system, is that we're bringing these motions to recuse. You have to bring them to the judges themselves that need to recuse. So you say it to them and say, hey, we think you shouldn't be on this case. But if you're motivated to be on the case and you're getting a claim, or you have some financial motivation, or a family member does, that puts that should ethically put you in a position where you should recuse, but they won't. And I think that the system we've seen repeatedly is a little bit broken. We filed those same motions with other judges in other cases for President Trump, where we found out that they were, donating or campaigning on getting Trump, things like that. And we've seen it be denied, and then we have to appeal it. And again, you're waiting, and the trial's still moving. So, yeah, I think the system really needs to reevaluate. I will say, in general, I think there's a problem with the whole recusal process, because trying to get somebody who's motivated to stay on the case to recuse himself is incredibly difficult.
No, I think you're exactly right. I went through this process myself. The judge imposed a very broad gag order on me at my trial. I appealed it to the D.C. Court of Appeals. They sat on it for 16 months without a ruling, and then the days before the trial was to open, they ruled that it wasn't ripe because I hadn't first asked the judge who imposed the gag order on me, the trial court judge, to remove it, which of course she never would have done anyway. It just kind of shows you how the system is stacked. Let's go back for a moment, if we may, to the so-called valuations case, where I think you did a brilliant job of presenting the president's defense. As I understand it, the president and his organization, the Trump organization, went out and they borrowed money from various banks. They put up certain collateral for those banks. While they did give a valuation for that collateral, the banks did their own due diligence, did their own appraisal, made a decision based on that due diligence that this was a good loan, lent the money, got paid back on time, some cases even early, with $40 million in interest that they made. Where's the crime? Who are the victims?
There was no crime. Yeah, there was no bamboozling. There was no crime. That's another case that we've seen already. The appellate division has given us some legs a little bit, but we got to keep going on that, because the reality is we have an attorney general who ran on getting Trump. That was before she had any information about the president or his company or his family. She completely, was motivated by politics. It's not a question. It's a fact. Look at what she was screaming on the streets of New York before she got elected. Get Trump. I'm going to get Trump. She did just that. She tried to. And yeah, nobody lost money. We were dealing with sophisticated banks, sophisticated lenders who truly were doing the right thing and did their own due diligence, made money. And they're saying, oh, well, no, they didn't make money and we have to protect consumers because this is fraud. Well, what's the fraud? They gave their values, then the banks go do their own due diligence. Plus, we had something called the president calls it a worthless clause. It's a waiver right in the front saying you should do your own due diligence. These are what we think they're worth. Go out there, do your work, get your appraisers, do whatever you want to do. And by the way, these banks, they would have done that anyway. They don't take what a borrower, they don't take our numbers. Nobody does. That's like saying my house is worth $5 million and them just lending me money on that. They do due diligence. So the whole thing was ridiculous. They used a statute that was for commercial division, and we were in a civil judge with a judge that truly has ruled against us for years. And that's another thing they do. They judge shop, and it's a problem. We shouldn't have even been in that court. So, I could go on for that one for days. I literally was on that case before it was a case, when it was a special proceeding for years. And it's the treatment that we got in there was truly awful. President Trump's family and company has made New York better. They've changed the skyline. They pay hundreds of millions of dollars in employee contributions, taxes, and to be treated so disrespectfully for doing absolutely nothing wrong but creating jobs, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know who she was protecting there.
I must say, from a national point of view, although I recognize it was extraordinarily expensive for the president and his family, they had to raise a huge amount of money of cash for a bond, entirely unfair. In the country, because this was a simple case and easy to understand, I actually think the president benefited from it politically. People looked at it and said, this is unfair. He hasn't done anything wrong. He borrowed money. He paid it back with interest. Where is the fraud?
Well, I think it's scary. It frightened a lot of business owners, Roger. They're looking at this going, well, what the heck? So now the attorney general can just go into a private contract with two sophisticated companies and say, we don't like the terms of your agreement, and we're going to just put our nose in and then fine them for the hell of it and call it that it's in the best interest of New York. No, it's not. What's in the best interest of New York is helping people walk the streets safely and getting all these migrants off the streets and cleaning up our drug problems and our problems with our children who are currently anti-Semitic and doing crazy things in New York. That's where their focus is supposed to be. But instead, we got courts after courts with how many police officers sitting guard for what? The President Trump's trials, his Biden trials, that's what we're seeing. It's just crazy. They're really doing the citizens of New York a disservice.
I think you and I both agree. The whole point here, of course, is that they don't really care about how they get a conviction of Donald Trump for something, anything. They also don't care that that conviction will later be overturned on appeal, because they recognize that if they can get a conviction before the election, it will serve their purposes. Their purposes being threefold. One, to drain the president's time and focus. He's got to sit in a courtroom when he should be out campaigning. He is the leading candidate for president. He is the first man in the history of the Republican Party to nail down the presidential nomination 3 times. Only one other president has done that. He continues to lead in both the swing states and nationally. So they seek to drain his time and focus. They seek to drain his money because he has to pay all these lawyers. By the way, the Democratic National Committee is paying Joe Biden's legal expenses pertaining to the special counsel investigating his illegal retention of top secret and classified papers. They obviously seek to blacken his name through leaks, through attacks from the witnesses, through the fake news media at a time that his hands are tied behind his back. The timing of this is all what's most curious to me.
Yeah, it's not coincidental. It's 100% election interference, as we've seen, so that he's not on the campaign trail, so that he's tied up. But then look at what he did yesterday. He hit 2 states in one day when most people would be resting. That's just who he is. So, they keep trying to stop him, Roger. You and I know that, but it only makes him stronger.
People who have never, which is most people, obviously, people who've never worked on a presidential campaign or any campaign, I don't think understand how all-consuming it is. The fact that the president did 2 rallies at the end of the week in the same day, that's a backbreaker for a man who's 45. Believe me, his energy level, his stamina, his optimism, the way he keeps a good humor through this all it's really quite extraordinary. If you don't know him, you know him, I know him. The American people, they know him better than they think, because the Trump you see is the real Trump. In other words, unlike some phony politicians, there isn't one Trump in private and another Trump in public. He's one person. He is what you see is what you get. He's straight up. He's not always eloquent, but he's always articulate. You always know exactly where he stands. And his stamina level just drives me. It's just very impressive. It's extraordinarily impressive. We are here with Alina Habba. You're listening to the Roger Stone Show, and we will be right back.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy, champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost. Their designer quality frames start at $95, including prescription lenses, plus scratch-resistant, smudge-resistant, and anti-reflective coatings, and UV protection, and free adjustments for life. To find your next pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to find the Warby Parker store nearest you, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
Alina Habba, always really great. Well, as I promised you in the beginning of the show, I would give you my mother's own family recipe, which of course means her grandmother's recipe for clams and linguine. This was always one of my father's great favorites. It's an extraordinarily simple dish, but it's actually a dish that is really easy to screw up. Some people, for example, add cream or milk to it. This would never pass muster in our home. So here it is. You need 2 cans of minced high-quality clams with juice. You need, I would say, a pound of linguine. I prefer Barilla or De Secco. I find Buitoni to be kind of the Budweiser of pastas, but that's just a personal preference. 1.4 cups of unsalted butter, a half cup of olive oil, 1/2 tablespoon of minced garlic, Calabrian chili paste, some white wine, about a half a cup, freshly ground black pepper, which you will need, and I think you need 10 to 12 clams. Now, these could be little necks or they could be Manila clams. The Manila clams is kind of a West Coast phenomena. They can even be small cherry stones. But the first thing you do, of course, is to take the clams, all the clams, put them in a prep bowl and cover them with cool tap water. Let the clams sit for 30 minutes. You want to give them a good shake every 10 or 15 minutes to expel any dirt. If there is any excess dirt on the outside, drain and re-scrub. Now, most of the clams that you're going to buy in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area are farmed, so they'll be relatively clean. Anyway, you put them aside. Now, in a large skillet, you will heat the butter, the olive oil over a medium heat. Once that is melted, you will add the garlic and some of that Calabrian chili paste, just a dab, really, and cook until the garlic is fragrant in about 60 seconds, really. Then you add the half a cup to a cup of white wine, pepper. You will increase the heat slightly, and you'll cook until all of that mixture is bubbling. If you need to add a bit of water at that point, you can, because at that point you're going to add the clams. You're going to increase the heat. You're going to cover the pot just until the clams open. Should be about 3 minutes. Now, if any of the clams don't open, discard them and transfer the open clams to the pot where you're going to put the pasta. You want to taste the sauce and adjust the salt and pepper as needed at that point. Now, warm through over medium heat. adding the reserved pasta water as needed to make it a little wetter. That's the other alternative to adding water earlier in that recipe. Garnish the linguine a bit and clams with extra herbs and served as needed. That's was, by all means, my mother's all-time favorite. As I said earlier, Margot Katzimatidis wants me to take this combination of Hungarian and Italian recipes that I've been revealing every week here on the Roger Stone Show and develop a 77 WABC cookbook. I'm, as I said earlier, half Italian and half Italian. Let's just say I'm Italian from the waist down. And I grew up in a family that had both Italian, American, and Hungarian American culture. Adam Carolla, the famous comedian, is also half Italian, half Hungarian. I had an uncle. It's even more extreme than that. I'm not just Italian. I'm actually Sicilian. My people, the Corvos, coming from Sicily. I had an uncle who said, well, you're half Hungarian and you're half Italian, which means you're very sentimental when you stab people in the chest. It was a running family joke. Last here on the Roger Stone Show, I gave you my mother's incredible recipe for Hungarian stuffed cabbage. If you had the 77 WABC radio app, you could easily go back and listen to it. I got a lot of very favorable coverage. Also, very pleased with the fact that since we had Mike Crispy of the Italian American Civil Rights League and also the host of Late Night with Mike Crispy over at Rumble on the show, membership in the Italian American Civil Rights League has increased. You can find more about this, but in essence, they've already removed the statue of Christopher Columbus in Baltimore and in other cities, and the New York City Council continues to talk about removing Christopher Columbus from the Big Apple. And that would be an insult to every Italian American in the city and in the country. It is anti-Italian bias. It's part of this woke culture decision to bury our heritage, to bury and erase our history. And the Italian American Civil Rights League, which is a nonprofit organization which has no overhead, in which no one who's involved makes a penny, in which everybody working on our projects, including legal action if necessary, to bar the city from removing Christopher Columbus from New York City, the statue of him, is growing. You can reach us. I'm a member, proud of it. You can reach us by going to IACRL, Italian American Civil Rights League.org. We are a nonprofit organization, but we are going to fight every appropriate and legal way to defend Italian American culture. Talking about the great contributions that Italian Americans, or Italians, but Italian Americans have made to sports, to culture, to everything that makes America great. So I invite you to go by there. And salutations for Mike Crispy. Almost 79 new members signed up last week after his appearance here on the show. Anyway, I'm very proud to be in the 77 WABC family. I thank you for listening to the Roger Stone Show this beautiful Sunday, and I urge you to hold on for my friend Joe Piscopo. Joe's quite a crooner himself, and he brings you the very best of old Blue Eyes, even though Joe's got a hell of a set of pipes of his own. But he'll be right along in a moment with Sundays with Sinatra.